Okay, I'm going to ask you, can you hear me, see me okay? Well, hopefully you can. Let me try to get away from the problem I had last week. The chat seems to be working, and I have no way to know if the sound is okay. We can hear, okay, good. So I assume you can also see. All right. Last week somebody said, look at the camera. The thing is, the screen and my notes are below, and the camera is up here at the top of the laptop, but I'll try to remember that. Looks good and see. Okay, good. Well, before I begin, no coffee today for coffee time. I had it already. This is a little late for me and my coffee. So I have a suggestion. I've got this great idea of how you can get rich. Yeah, this is a get rich scheme that I guarantee is going to work. Okay, you ready for it? Somebody needs to invent, well, you know, on sheets, you have the bottom one that's a form fitting and the top one's flat. Well, I was putting away some laundry today. My entire life, I've been cursing out that form fitting thing. You can't fold it. It's an unfoldable thing. So you basically end up wadding it up in this ball in the closet. So if somebody could come up with an idea to have a foldable form fitting sheet, I think you'd become a millionaire. Bitcoin. Yeah. Okay. You know, yeah, I'm stalling a little just to make sure this thing is working okay. I'm checking a couple things here. I'm new to this streaming. This is what, the third one, and the second one was kind of a mess. So I'm working on it. I'm trying to find alternatives, but to YouTube, because it's a little glitchy apparently. Okay. First of all, I'm going to complain that my back hurts. And unfortunately, it's my own damn fault. I've mentioned this before, maybe once, maybe twice, I don't know. When I was doing a lot of bus riding, like from Cuenca to Armenia, it's like a couple days on the bus. Yeah, I stop at a hotel on the way. But if you're on these buses, particularly in Ecuador, the buses there are a little beat up, and it's pretty common to get a beat up bus. And so as you're going to jump on a bus and you're going to go to Quito, or you're going to go to Salinas or wherever, if you sit in the back of the bus and the shocks or the springs are bad or broken, you really get a pounding. Well, I haven't had to deal with that in quite some time. Most of the buses here are pretty well taken care of. But some of the city buses, not many, but some of the city buses haven't yet been replaced. And some are pretty ratty. And I don't ride buses that often, but yesterday I was going to the terminal to meet up with my friend Marcella to go to Quimbaya. And I took a city bus to the terminal. And it was one of those beat up ratty ones. And stupid me, without thinking, the exit's in the back of the bus. So I just went and sat in the back row. It went over this speed bump or a pothole or something and just pounded. And you could hear my spine. So I've been a little stiff and achy. So what's the point? The point is, when you're in South America, actually maybe anywhere, but when you're in South America and you're taking a bus, I think especially if you're on a long trip, do everything you can to sit towards the front of the bus. And when this was more of a common problem for me and it was more front of mind, I would even wait for the next bus if the only seats they had were in the back. The last time this happened was on a buseta I took from Manizales to Pereira, and it had no springs. It was horrible. And I cracked my spine, and for 3 days I could barely move. It was a lot of pain. Fortunately, I don't have back problems in general, and it heals up. But it's a cautionary tale, particularly if you have a back problem. I could see where this could really do some damage. So do everything you can not to sit in the back of the bus. It's funny how dramatically different it is if you're sitting at or behind the rear wheels versus ahead of the rear wheels. It makes all the difference in the world. All right, let me take a quick look. Okay. Like the comment, but okay, so that's my back. Now I mentioned the trip. I went with Marcella, and some of you may remember her. I did an interview with her and her girlfriend, Valentina. They speak English, and they go to the university. It's 2 blocks from where I live. And I actually met her because I got a refrigerator, and her father brought it and set it up. And it's his daughter, and he put her on the phone. Although we were doing fine, he put her on the phone, talked to me because she's an English major. And so I ended up meeting her that way. And so we see each other from time to time. It's not a romantic thing. She's got a boyfriend, but I'm good practice for her, and she helps me with some information or go somewhere just to kind of help me out. She went with me the other day to solve a billing problem that I had with the water bill. So she's become a pretty good friend, and I needed to go to Kimbaya, which is where I went, which is not very far from here. And I asked her if she would tag along, and she did. So I went there and we walked around, and I took my video, but I noticed on the screen, it was getting really herky-jerky, and at one point actually froze up. And so I cut the trip short. I had enough video for a video, but I didn't have everything I wanted to do. But there's no point in spending a couple more hours if it's just going to be defective. So I came home to check it out. I thought it was going to be the phone, and it wasn't. It's got the new card. Thank you all for that. Your contributions took care of 2 new cards for me for 2 different pieces of equipment. And for the trip and the next 2 trips here in Candio. But so I came home to check it out, and it wasn't the phone. The phone was okay. It turns out, and I don't have a solution, but this is a stabilizer. And the phone sits in here like that. And that's how I get those smooth shots. Well, the phone connects to the software of the stabilizer via Bluetooth. And I've never had a problem with this before, but for some reason, that's the link. Either the software that's in here has got an amazing software program, and that's what I actually run. It doesn't run off the video of the cell phone. It runs off this software, which is crazy good. It has so many features. And so it's either the software in here or the Bluetooth. I don't know. I hope this isn't bad because it's made a huge difference. So I'll try to find out and get it fixed. But here's the format of the channel. What's that got to do with the trip? It's when the video is going to come out. From now on, good morning. From now on, what I'm going to do is every Sunday at 11 a.m. this time, I'm going to do this live coffee time. I am not going to do once or twice a month a Q&A. I don't think there's any point in doing that if I do the live coffee time every Sunday. What I'll do is I'll cover my topics, and then at the end, if you have questions, go ahead and ask the questions, and I'll extend the coffee time and go through the questions. There's no reason to do something separate. So on Sundays, I'll have this at 11 a.m., live coffee time, Q&A at the end. And then every Wednesday, I'm going to post up a video, and that will be my schedule. If for some reason I have extra videos here or there. I'll put them in, they'll just be bonus. So you might see something on a Tuesday or a Thursday. It'll be unplanned, unscheduled. It's just going to happen. But that will be my schedule going forward until it gets changed for something. But it will allow me a few things. One, when I do these, I don't have to edit. I hate editing, takes me forever. These I don't have to, so it saves me a lot of time, saves me hours of time. And by doing one video consistently every week, that will allow me to get 1 or 2 other videos potentially done during the week. And then I'll have extra videos. So if something comes up, I get sick, piece of equipment breaks, something's taking way too long, I'll have a video sitting on the shelf that I can go ahead and put up, and it'll be there for you. So it'll be like a little inventory of 1 or 2 videos. And if I go somewhere and I can't post the video because of Wi-Fi, whatever reason, it'll still be there. I can schedule it to go up at that time. And what I will also try to do on those Wednesday videos, there will almost always be the premiere style. So if you watch it when it first goes on, which will probably be 9 a.m., if you watch it when it first goes on, I will be there while that video is playing out the first time. So you can, contact me in the chat that way also. So you can contact me through chat on Sunday and Wednesday. And of course, if you look at the comments section below these videos, you're going to find all the emails and Facebook pages and everything else that's there. So that's the plan for that. Now I got a question from Jeffrey, and I thought it was a pretty good question. And rather than answer him, I told him, watch today, and I'm going to comment on it. It's a good question because there's not too much of a right or wrong answer, but I'll give you why I believe in doing it a certain way. Okay, which makes the most sense if you're going to move to a country? To go to that country and travel around first and check it out. And if you look at the Lolita interview that I did with her husband, 3 or 4 videos on their year-long trip across South America and Central America, that's the way they did it. And it's certainly a viable way to do it. Rather than get an apartment or buy something, you just kind of go and stay in hotels in various areas, kind of get the lay of the land until something feels right. Hold on. Software need to be upgraded. Says it's upgraded. Anyway, sorry about that. It caught my eye. The way I recommend it works for me personally, and there is no right or wrong to this, but for me, because of the way I am, I'm not comfortable with things up in the air. And so I can travel around, but I'd make a lousy backpacker because I want a home base. And so what I would do is go to the place that I think I want to go and go ahead and do the process and get your visa and set up your apartment, knowing that you may very well move after that time expires, which typically will be a year. I personally prefer that. Now, when you do move somewhere, always keep in mind it's temporary. So I certainly would never recommend go someplace that you haven't lived for at least a year and buy something. I think that's a huge mistake because you can go visit a place even for a month or 2 and everything seems okay. But once you're living in a place, it's amazing how things can pop up that could really go against the grain, that could really bother you. And it may not be an everyday thing, so you might not see it for a month, but then maybe it occurs and then it happens a lot. And things change. I had here for a short time in the apartment, in the buildings next to this building, somebody moved in with a diesel truck and he was pulling it in the courtyard where actually they're not supposed to, they've got parking and that's where they're supposed to be. But he would start it up and I would get diesel fumes. Well, that happened for a few days. I think other people complained and I never saw him again. But if that were an ongoing thing, that would have driven me crazy. So you need to learn the particular area in the particular building or house that you're going to live in before you want to make a life commitment. So you certainly wouldn't want to buy it and then not be able to get out, from under it. So what I prefer to do is go get my place, get set up, and then from there I can do day trips or 2 or 3 day trips to different areas. And if I'm finding that where I moved is deficient in one way or another, then what I can do is start making plans for an alternative. And just like I wouldn't want to live here for 3 months and then jump to another because I went there for a week and it was awesome. But over the next year, you can spend a lot more time, get to know some people, ask some questions, and maybe lay the groundwork. Now, what I did, I moved to Cuenca. I was there for a year in a high-rise apartment building. It was a great location. But then I moved to Giron, a little town south of Cuenca with 2,000 people. I loved it there, but the Wi-Fi killed me. I mean, that was it really hurt my income. But it was a great place, and to this day, I could highly recommend it if you're not making, money off the internet. But after a year, I needed to do something about it. It was, before it ran me broke, so I moved back to Cuenca. So I was back to Cuenca in a different area, in a much better area, as a matter of fact, because you learn as you go. So when I moved back to Cuenca after being around there for 2 years, I knew exactly where to live. And when I moved there were no surprises, and it was perfection. It was a wonderful place. So that's why I would recommend it the way I would recommend it. You can't go wrong with either one. But I guess it would depend on your personality. Your experience is going to guide you. It's going to inform you. And so when you first come, you don't really know. You're taking your best guess. Just keep that frame of mind. You're here temporarily, and you may change your mind. Okay. Well, we still got some people online. Comparing cities. I keep getting these requests to compare one city to the other. And honestly, it's kind of like one of those topics like cost of living that's a difficult topic for me. I did a video comparing Medellin to Armenia. And I did sort of a video comparing Cuenca to Armenia. Wasn't that much that one wasn't that much of a comparison, but a little bit. But I get asked a lot about other cities. Recently, I went to Ibagué and I got Ibagué, and I got several requests to compare Armenia to Ibagué. I'm asked to compare Cali, one city to, Cali to Popayán. And I'm not comfortable with it because they're never really fair comparisons. There's certain things that just don't, as a viewer, if you haven't been there, you take it and you say, it's black and white. It becomes gospel, and it becomes one of those items that you're going to draw upon to make a decision, and you're making a life decision. And I know from this side, being here, being there, particularly in Ibagué's case, where I'd never been there before, and I was only there for 3 days. Other places I have much more familiarity with, like Cali. I've been there dozens of times, and probably by the calendar 2 months I've been there. But the viewpoint that I'm going to give is always going to be skewed for where I decided to settle down because I happen to like this particular place. And so it's going to be a little haphazard, and it's not going to be completely accurate. There's going to be a lot of subjectivity to it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's something that I struggle with. I know that a lot of guys will go out there and do YouTube videos on cost of living because that's a real moneymaker, and the comparisons. You see that a lot. But when I see them of places that I know, I don't see those comparisons to be all that valid. And so if it's somebody that doesn't know, they're taking that as information. And my goal is really to give you the best information I can in an honest way so that you can make a good decision. And so if I don't feel I can achieve that, then yeah, I kind of skip over it. So I do avoid comparisons directly. I just try to give you information for the particular place the best I can. I'm asked all the time about what other place would I live in. And the thing is, I live here because I love it here. And I've been to many, many other places here in Colombia and all over Ecuador. And this is my favorite place. So for me, at this point in time, there is no alternative. I mean, I really love it here. So, it's kind of it's absolutely a biased opinion that I have. Of course, I have my reasons. It's not, some fantasy. I mean, it's because the more I know, the more I appreciate it here. Okay, so almost at the end here. I want to mention subscribers. I go through my little stats and I see a number of people mention, I didn't get noticed for such and such. And I look, and because you're not subscribed. If you want to get noticed, you need to hit the subscribe button and that little bell. And even then, it's not 100% guarantee, but you've got a way better chance. I have about 30% of the individuals that watch these videos, about 30% are actually subscribed. So, if you're finding any kind of use or value in these, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll get notifications. And if the notifications bother you, you can always unsubscribe. I'm subscribed to a number of channels, and none of them bother me. I'm subscribed because I want to see that content. And if it's something I don't feel like watching, I simply don't. So I strongly suggest you subscribe and hit the bell so I quit getting the complaints basically about, I didn't get any notification. I can't do more than I'm doing. You got to do your part. So I know 70% of you are not subscribed, and those are the people that keep, telling me that. So there you go. That's how you do it. And you're welcome. All right. So that's all I got for my coffee time today. I'm ready for any questions you have before I end this. All right. Okay, somebody included a link for city comparisons, and that's always good. I have to say this, and I look at these same things, and some information is better than no information, and I get that too. I can't think of the site, but there is a site that's like the #1 site you go to look at cost of living. And so you can look at Armenia, and it'll say cup of coffee, a beer, rent, electric. If anybody of you know the name of that site, go ahead and throw it in the comments. It's been around for a while. And the problem with that site is there's a lot of inaccuracies to it. I had somebody send me one from Manizales in Cuenca, in Armenia, Manizales in Armenia. And I'm going through and looking there. Now, having lived in both places, I have a pretty good handle on what things cost. So it wasn't a mystery to me. And it was somebody that lived in one and was telling me how much better it was than another one. And so I go through there and it was full of inaccuracies. I guess it's a okay rule of thumb, but don't take it for gospel, because it actually represented Manizales to be a lower cost of living than Armenia, which is absolutely 100% not true. It's noticeably less expensive in Armenia. And I don't know how they got it wrong, but they got it wrong. And I see that with a number of things on that site. So in general, the overall amount, it's maybe not too far off, but it's not accurate comparing one to the other. All right, what do we got? Is it typical that landlords will raise their rent 10% a year? And I include Ecuador in this also. It's not unusual for landlords to want to do that. If you have a good relationship, and the best way I think is my way, I always pay my rent 2 weeks early. You got to pay it anyway. So you can pay it at the time it's due, or you can pay it early. I have never failed to pay him early. He never receives more money than what I'm supposed to pay, but he thinks I'm the best tenant in the world. To the point where he called the building here and told them to treat me as though I were the owner and I can make decisions for him. And he did that solely because he trusts me, and it's because I pay early. So it's like a free benefit. When I come to the end of the year, I highly doubt he's going to try to hit me with 10%. It's possible. Is it a norm? It's not really a norm, but it's not that unusual. And here's an advantage of a place like Armenia. There's so many places to rent. If somebody wants to hit me, jack up my rent, and I just don't feel it's worth it, I got so many choices. I can get the same or even less rent of where I am. I haven't yet to decide. The only thing I don't like about where I am is that it feels a little small for me, even though it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It's the smallest place I've lived in decades. And everybody that comes here, they think it's awesome, but it doesn't have a dining room. I like sitting at a dining room table to do work. I don't have one. I could put it in the second bedroom, but it's just kind of awkward. So if in 4 months I can move, it's possible. Although the location can't be beat, they treat me well. So 10% is a common. It doesn't have to be. I guess I'll say that. If you're a good tenant, and just say you don't want to pay it, and just say, look, I really don't want to move. I like it here, but I'm not going to do the 10%. So you decide what you want to do. Does he want to put the place vacant and hope he gets a tenant right away, or maybe sit on it for 3 months? Or in a place like Armenia, it could be 6 months because there's so many choices. Now in Medellin, depending on where you are, rent is way higher, double, sometimes triple the rent. And there's less rental, there's inventory, but there's less of it than what is here. So there, if you find a cherry place, it's going to be up to you to weigh that option if you have a landlord to decide to hit you. And you're more likely to get it in a place like that because it's more likely to find a renter behind you. So it depends on the circumstances. In Cuenca, it was fairly common there. And I never stayed a place longer than a year. I was in 3 places, 3 years. So I never actually ran into it. But when I did leave in Cuenca, a gringo from Quito came down and moved into it. He bought all my stuff and he moved into it. And I talked to the landlord, and he got the same rent that I had for the year before, for the sake of having that transition and not having to look for a tenant. So I guess it falls to your lap of what you what you want to put up with. 10% is not a lot, but it's not necessary unless you're in a particular place. Now, if I'm in Santa Marta and I've got a place on the beach and it's half the rent of places not as good, yeah, maybe go for that 10%. All right, what do we got? Availability in Armenia. Surprised when I talk about availability. There's tons of availability. I mentioned this before as to why there's so many new buildings going up, because there is a boom from people working in Bogota primarily, although not exclusively. There's a lot of Cali people. But I always say Bogota because that's where the wages are the highest. They're looking to retire in Armenia. This is like paradise. And so it's the dream to go to live in Armenia for your retirement years. It's safe, the weather's good, there's so much to do. It's non-polluted, it's just a beautiful place. And so you're having all these apartments built, but you don't have people moving into them because they might not be retiring for 10, 15, 20 years. But they're getting them now. And so they want to rent them to pay as much as that mortgage as possible, because they're paying in Bogota and they're paying a second one here. Now, because it's so much cheaper here, they see it as, even if I don't have a renter for a year, I'll get renters along the way. That's going to help defray the cost so that by the time I actually retire, everything is paid for. And you can actually get a townhouse or a nice apartment in dollars, $30,000 to $50,000, and have a really nice place. This one where I live is probably $35,000, $40,000 if you were to just buy it. And there are no apartment buildings. They're all owners. And when you rent apartments, you're renting it from that particular owner. So that's the situation. And that's why there's so much inventory. There's so much available that I look probably once a week thinking about what am I going to do when my lease expires? What's going on? What's out there? Plus I do these videos. So I want current information. And I look to see what's out there and what's available. And if I look for a place like I'm looking for it, there's always dozens to choose from. And there's always a bunch of them that have been unrented for 2-3 months. And those are the prime ones. You can go directly to the owner and he hasn't rented it in a while. You can make your best terms. That's the way to go at it. All right. Okay, asking me about the couple that I did the interview, Lolita. Why did they choose Armenia? I actually covered that in the interview of the last video. But what it boiled down to in my conversations with them is they just hadn't run into a spot that ticked all the boxes like this area. Now, they're not actually living in Armenia. They're living closer to Pereira, but they live in the country. Now, Pereira and Armenia are just, 10 miles apart, less than 10 miles. They're not that far in a straight line. Of course, 45 minutes by the bus. But they're living in the country in this beautiful place, but in cost of living, which everybody cares about, beauty, lack of pollution. I think probably more than anything else they mentioned was the sincere friendliness of people. Not a facade, not some kind of, I'm going to be nice to you and smile to try to get your money. It's not like that here. And in all their travels, they would see that everywhere they go, but not see it here. And we talked about the dog issue in Ecuador and Peru. These dogs, they just kind of run wild and crap everywhere. There's a certain level of cleanliness and smells, and that exist in a lot of places. But when you come here, you see dogs on leashes, people picking up after them, and not just dogs. You see the streets clean. You see the owners out scrubbing the sidewalks in front of their house or business. Pretty much every morning, throw some bleach and water down, and they're scrubbing it with a broom. And while you see these things in other places, it's like the norm here. I don't know if you've ever been to Germany, but if you go to a German village and you compare it to most villages in the rest of the world, they're pristine. Everything is like perfection. Everything is cut just exact. Fences are, painted. There's no chip paint. It's like so picturesque, because as a culture, they're just obsessive about things being nice and clean and organized. And you go to other places in the world and they could care less. I mean, they throw trash out in their own yard and just not worry about it. Well, here in Armenia, it kind of leans to the German side of things. I'm not saying they have a obsessive compulsive disorder like maybe they do in Germany, but it leans to that, where they want it to be clean. They want to be proud of where they are. And so you feel that. And so they came here, and the sincere friendliness, not the fake friendliness, the climate. I mean, it's really about as good as it gets. The sheer beauty of everything around here. I mean, how do you say no to that? At some point, if you find everything that you're looking for, then you don't need to go any further. And that was it. They come to Colombia, but kept going. But as they kept going through a couple more countries, they realized they really found everything they wanted in Colombia. And so they came back, spent some time here, and that was it. Fell in love. They actually bought beautiful property I've yet to get to, but I will soon. I've been invited. Go do a video. I'll show you all that. Bought a nice new car. I mean, they're here, embedded, settled in, and living a great life. What are the advantages to being a gringo in Armenia and disadvantages? To me, it almost feels neutral, except when it comes to meeting people. There's few English speakers around that are comfortable speaking English, but pretty much everybody has had English classes. So the ones that progressed a little bit further, if they see an English speaker, an accent, American accent, they kind of gravitate to you. They find a reason to meet you because they want to try to practice the language. So that's a big advantage. I've met so many people like that. My trip to Ibagué, where I met Chris and Kali when she was on vacation with her girlfriend, it was because of that, because she spoke English, heard me, and we ended up meeting and traveling on the bus, and she helped me when I went there. So you make friends. I have no disadvantage here except my own personal lack of Spanish, which in most cases I'm good enough. Just some detailed particular things, it gives me difficulty. But I will say that in a place like Medellin, for example, it kind of puts a target on you. And any of you from Medellin watching, you can verify this. And it's not everybody. I mean, I just don't want to paint a blank, but it's pretty common. Oh, a gringo. It's like a walking ATM machine. And so there's so many people there that are working angles. And it's not just, I shouldn't just single out Medellin. You find this all over the place. You find it somewhat in Cuenca. It's not horrible, but you'll see it. Central America, it's pretty rampant. Mexico, I found it a lot. And I've been to Mexico a bunch of times. And it seemed like every time I went, I had that kind of situation. Peru. So you get that in varying amounts in different places, and here you're asking here in Armenia, I don't really get that, with I'll say one exception. You have street beggars here like you have everywhere, like you get them in the US. And while not so much here, but I will get targeted. I really noticed it when I step out. When I was in Bagué, when I was in Kimbaya yesterday, it was really noticeable in Kimbaya. They would go past 20 people to get to me, and it was one after another after another. It was really annoying. So that's a disadvantage. Now, if I lived there and they saw me for a while, that would start to go away. I'm heartless when it comes to that. If I have a particular reason, there's a guy that sits in front of the movie star and he's missing a leg. He's an old guy. He's probably, I would guess, in his 70s. And whenever I go by, even if I'm broke, I try to drop some coin in his cup. So it's almost probably every other day on average, I'll throw something in his cup, because he's real, he's legitimate, it's not a scam. And here you find a lot of locals leery about all the scams. Like they'll come up with this paper, a hospital doctor's paper, saying, I need this operation. If I don't have it, I'm gonna, and here's my proof. And so many of those things are just scams. And so even local people here, they're just kind of disgusted by it. But there are some that are actually legitimate. So if they come up to you cold, you don't really know. So I have absolutely no problem saying, no, not interested. See ya. Don't bother me. Go away. I don't feel bad about it. So in my life, I do enough. I'm comfortable with the level of what I do for people. I don't feel the need to drain every last drop of resource. I made that mistake in Cuenca, to be honest with you. When I was doing that Venezuelan thing, I really went too far and hurt myself in that whole episode. And I had a lot of people helping, but it's an endless thing. And so you got to be careful. You have to preserve yourself while you have care for humanity. So, so that's a disadvantage. But for the most part here, I'm not singled out for anything in particular. I'm treated like everyone else here. And the bigger the city, the larger the expat community, the less you get that. So it's about as complete and long-lasting answer as I can give. What is the dating scene like in Armenia? Oh, it's a topic I don't want to get into very much in the YouTube videos. Some of the calls that I'll do, private. But it's whatever you make it. This is what I will tell you. If you want to have success in dating, now I'm still working on it, and I've slowed down. I probably went on 60 some dates over the course of a couple months. And I had no money, so for the most part, they would come and meet me here at my building. A lot of those were, a waste of time. But the thing is, I just left the door open. I'm willing to meet everybody, because even if they're not going to ultimately be a girlfriend or something, they could be a friend. And so I approached it that way. So that's why there were so many. I met a number of people that were very nice and could be a girlfriend, except I'm so obnoxious, so particular, so hard to get along with. I know to avoid certain kinds of people that would be perfectly well suited for most other people. But I don't find difficulty. You just have to be aware of certain things, like don't try to walk up to somebody on the street and get to know them. It's rude, because they don't know you and they believe in introductions. having said that, you can go into a little tienda or store, and if there's somebody working there, you can certainly strike up a bit of a conversation as long as it doesn't get too carried away, because the fact that they work there, it precludes the need for an introduction. And I've gone on a couple dates like that. I've met some nice people like that, where I just thought they were interesting. Of course, they look really pretty. I mean, physically, that's the only thing you know at first. And you go up and you talk a little bit, and they've got a sense of humor. Maybe they laugh at one of your bad jokes. And so you ask them out. But here's the thing I will say: if there's one thing to be successful in dating in Colombia, without being obnoxious, but you need to be an alpha male. If you're a beta male, if you kind of simper around and you're milk toast, you will be very unattractive to the women here. If you're all consumed with everything for them. Now, you don't want to go the other way and be some kind of macho guy and could care less about them and let the door slam in their face. And, you got to find the happy medium. What they really respect, admire, and seek, and I find this, it's a pretty blanket statement that's, I would say it's a valid stereotype, is the man who knows his mind, is strong-minded, strong-willed, but is still chivalrous, will still open the door for somebody who has respect for the female. So it's not so much we're going to be equal and fight about it. It's, if you're going to be a man, and that's attractive. If you want to be a woman, then go somewhere else. And that's how they kind of view beta males. They just, where in the US, it's a very popular thing and no problem getting a girlfriend. If you're a beta male here, at the very best, you'll find some tyrannical monster that is going to order you around the rest of your life, because they're going to see that's what you deserve. So keep that in mind. Aside from that, I just don't want to go into any more detail, but I will say that it's not difficult at all. I would say it's much easier here, and whatever you choose is really available. Whether you want somebody, your age is always a big thing. It's really a non-issue here. You can be with somebody that's 20, 30, 40, 50, because it's not so important to most people here. It's not a big hang up. In the US, there's a huge hang up about that. Oh my God, he's 10 years younger, and it's a real problem. I've dated from 18, 19, 22, 30s, 40s. I find for me, for the attitudes and frame of mind, personalities, that from mid-20s to mid-30s is probably the best range suited for me. But there's all exceptions. I'm generalizing here. And it's not because I'm out seeking somebody younger. I notice that when you get old over that, then you get a lot more controlling going on, and I can't deal with that. I don't want somebody who's just going to be, do whatever I say, but you're not going to tell me what to say either. So you have to find that happy medium, and it kind of falls into that. Oh, so I am really not comfortable with that topic, but I hope that helps you. Any other questions before I wrap this up? Just, well, it's not an hour, but do you see any small business opportunities in Armenia? Yeah, you can get rich if you invent a form-fitted sheet that will fold, as I mentioned, and sell it all across the world. I really want to say no. In any of these countries, I would say no. You're not going to really want to come here unless you have an income. If you want to have a business that is more like something to do, which like my videos, then you want to have it like through the internet, like what I'm doing. If you open a business here, you're opening yourself up to tax issues, which if you're on a fixed income, retirement, disability, or whatever, you don't have tax issues, despite what you read in the forums. There aren't any tax issues. But if you have a business, then automatically everything falls into the bucket that becomes eligible for tax. So you could actually go backwards. Plus, the amount of money that you're going to make here is relative to the scale of the economy here. So a successful business here, you would think it doesn't even reach retirement money for the most part. So, never say never. I mean, I spent my whole life with owning businesses or managing other people's business, but mostly owning businesses. And so it's in my blood. And when I'm here, I think about it all the time. But it's the value of it versus as an expat, the possible issues you're going to run into, particularly taxes. So it's nothing I can think of top of mind that I would do. All right, is that it? Last call. Give you a second to type if you got something there. Feel free to hit that little donate icon there at the bottom. It's got a little $sign. Any questions? Going once. Okay, so just a quick refresher while we wait. The format from now on will be live coffee time, 11 a.m. every Sunday, Q&A after, if there are any. That will also be, fundraising events or whatever. Wednesdays will be the premiered video for where I went the week, from the week before, or whatever it is I, feature if it's a topic. And occasionally there'll be other videos along the way, or if in particular there's something that I want to record and address, then I will just shoot that out. But for schedule, you're going to get Sunday, you're going to get Wednesday. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications. So I think that's it. All right, well, thank you for watching. Quite a few people. I appreciate it. And I'll see you, next time.